Today is actually a big day because one of our own got a big national award from the Sierra Club. So Niles Selden, who's right here in the blue, you can stand up and wave. Yeah, Niles won an award for the Sierra Club Outings for Action Award. So Niles has been a volunteer with the Sierra Club since 1985, which predates my existence in the world, which is crazy. And Niles has done just a fantastic job, basically building vibrant conservation community through outings work. So much so that the National Sierra Club wanted to acknowledge that. So just a little bit of talking about Niles, because I got to talk with him a little bit. So he's been doing this for 40 years. They've done so many outings. They do outings here in Austin. I think it's every Saturday, several per week, and there's a meetup for that you can find online. They go to places such as Big Bend or Colorado for just like bigger trips, so you can connect with other environmental folks and then also see beautiful places around the country. He got his start in Dallas, but 40 years ago, and then moved to Austin in the year 2000, and then became the chairman of the Austin Outings group in 2011. So he's always been recruiting other outings leaders. So if you want to be an outings leader, watch out because Niles is coming for you. And then, and even so much, he's so engaged that even during the summer when it is often too hot to do outings, he will still get people together to watch conservation films together inside. So we actually have an award from the National Sierra Club here. So Niles, if you want to come up, we can give you this actual award that you have earned through years of service. So yeah, let's give it up for Niles. Yeah, and yeah, it's legit. Yeah, I want to be in the photo, but it's not really about me. So isn't that cool? Yeah. Okay, Niles, I forgot two more things to say, and then you are going to introduce our speaker. If you can just stay up here. Our next meeting next month is November 12th. We have Philip Russell talking about energy in Mexico. Philip, right here. He is an expert on this. I believe you wrote a book about it. Oh, yeah, multiple books about energy in Mexico, which is something that we don't often talk about here. I'm really excited for that. So come back November 12th. And then if you want to get involved in other things, I think it's Science Under the Stars tomorrow. And you can find that on our meetup page and learn about science while we look at the stars together. So without further ado, I will pass this to Niles, who will introduce Bill Johns. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Dave. And for the award, I would like to recognize all the outings leaders before who have helped me, such as Philip Russell, John Yarber back there, Chuck Bird, and back in Dallas, there's others in the audience I see, who help with outings and have made the program a success. So a big round of applause for them, too. Tonight we have Bill Johns, who is quite an experienced backpacker. He leads outings with the Austin Sierra Club group and also the Austin Backpackers Meetup. Bill has quite a background. He's been in the Air Force, served in the Air Force for 21 years, has traveled all over the world. And since his retirement from the Air Force, has become an AISD special education teacher at Crockett High School. Do we have any Crockett alums in the audience? Oh, one. Okay, very good. Okay, that's good to see. Bill has quite an extensive background of backpacking. He's done the Colorado Trail, the Pacific Rim Trail, how many thousand miles? The Tahoe Rim Trail, he's done he's done more miles than I can imagine. Um, and we are fortunate to have him present tonight on one of his latest conquests. And I will let you take it away, Bill.
Good evening. I just want to mention one more thing about Niles. Well, maybe two more things. Even during COVID, he put on, I guess you couldn't call them outings. They were kind of like innings. We were all on Zoom, and I remember presenting about the Colorado Trail, and then also, watching other people's presentations. And, obviously we all needed something to do during that time. And he also didn't mention that he almost got me into divorce proceedings last Thanksgiving. No, I'm just kidding. Everybody bailed out of the Big Bend trip, and I was the only one that was wilderness first aid certified or whatever. So, yeah, my wife was not happy, but we survived. So anyway, Kungsleden is a trail in Sweden, and they say that it's the wildest place left in Europe. It's about 270 miles, but there's also a few, like, you'll see further in the presentation, there's a couple side trips that everybody seems to take that, probably make it more like 300. What am I pointing this at? There we go. That's just a map. We can come back to that, at the end of the presentation if anybody's interested. So if anybody's interested in doing this, this is some things to do before you go, which a really important one that I wish I would have known that I had to wait about halfway through it to get an internet connection to join this STF, and that's actually the website. But it's only about $40, and there's all these like little huts that you go to, and even like it's not kind of like the Pacific Crest Trail or Colorado Trail where you end up in a town. You even like the type of hotels or whatever you stay in, they're all owned by this. It's like the Swedish tourist organization or whatever, and anyway, so it's big discounts. Even like if you buy freeze dried food or beer or whatever at these little huts that they have, or if you want to stay the night in those places. And then the way to get there really is to fly to Stockton and then take the overnight train to Abisko. We took a train from Zurich because the guy I was hiking it with, who I met on the Pacific Crest Trail in 2017, he's Swiss, so I went there and hung out with him and his partner for week or so, hiked around there, and before we left, and before we left, we went to one of these outdoor stores and each probably bought about 8 pounds of food, or to take on the trip, and within probably the first hour of the second day, which we didn't even get on the trail until in the evening. We ran into one of these huts, and I looked in there and I was like, should have just bought the food here. If I did it again, I mean, and really, I gave away most of the food that I had because I just wanted to just buy it, because I don't like carrying water to the water, and I don't like carrying food to the food. So you don't need to pack much food. Of course, it's going to be a little bit pricey or whatever, but to me, it's really worth it not to have to carry it. And these huts, particularly on the first half, which is the most popular half to hike, is they are, they're about, every 12 to 15 kilometers, so they're not that far apart. And then also be sure, which we also didn't really do, carry a few $100s worth of krona, because sometimes the pay points in these little huts, because they just got a little solar panel or whatever, sometimes they don't work, and so if you want to buy anything there, you need cash, and then sometimes you have to pay for these larger water crossings. Huh? What? You know, like in a store where you go and you tap your card. Yeah, yeah, PayPoint. Yeah, um, and also take a sleep mask. That's another mistake that I made, and then the other mistake that we made is we shouldn't have booked our flight because he gave us 3 weeks. He organized it all. He's Swiss, right? So, and and he's European, so it was easier for him to figure out all this stuff. But so we had a specific flight booked from Hamavon, and even though we tried to drag our feet towards the end, we really finished it in about 2 weeks and a couple days. And so we ended up having to rebook our flight, and that cost us a little extra money. And then we ended up staying in Stockholm which is very expensive for 5 nights or something like that. I'm sorry? The sun never goes down. Ever. I did not. I mean, somebody told me that, but I really didn't understand the concept. Never. Oh yeah, but I stayed in tents. I didn't do the hut thing. That is a real possibility, though. To just stay, just hike from hut to hut, and then if you did, really all you really need to carry is a sleeping bag and your water. If you stayed in these huts. But yeah, we were staying in tents, and I have a really translucent tent, and going the wrong way. So this is what we did before our trip to Sweden. This is my friend Dionis, right there on the left. That's me, and he has a place. Him and his partner, they work in Zurich. So that's a picture from, he's like the ninth floor of some apartment complex. It's really beautiful, and so that's their apartment in Zurich. That's a cabin that he built from the age of 17 to the age of 26. And I don't know if you're familiar with how Swiss society is or whatever, but you live in these little villages, and it's like you have land rights, like like indigenous people or something like that. So like he could run cattle in the mountains above him, or if he wanted to, and he just found this remnants of a cabin that he could just build up from there, because if there's already one there, then you can you just petition your little village, and if they say you can do it, then he built the thing up. He's got quite a story about that, and then he pays like a lease of it, like $99 a year or something. He told me it was, and when he dies or whatever, it's not his. It belongs to the community, but it's his now. And then that's his house in the valley, and it's actually all these in this particular village. All these these were old stables that got built into really nice modern houses, and yeah, so it was a lot of fun, and definitely the hardest hiking that I did. So there's just some pictures there. That's the glacier. Um, yeah, and then this is us. Like I said, don't do what we did. We took a train all the way, through Germany, through Luxembourg, through, yeah, it was, and then when we got to Copenhagen, it was like our train was just. We went to look at the board, and our train just said canceled. So we had to take like 2 other trains. Then we missed our night train. You know, almost didn't get there. Almost turned into a real nightmare because you could get to Hamavon on a plane, but if you want to start on the north at Abisko, it's definitely you got to take a train. And Abisko is kind of a place where a lot of people go in the wintertime to see the northern lights as well. And so one of the actual highlights of the trip for me was we stayed around. We got off the train at about 4 o'clock or whatever in the restaurant at the STF Lodge, which is, have you ever seen any of these, like at Crater Lake or Timberline Lodge or any of these things they put up in the 30s that really beautiful, beautiful lodges. This lodge was like that. And so the restaurant opened at like 6. And so we were like, we'll wait. And anyway, I imagine a lot of people in here are vegetarians, but if you're not, reindeer, that was the most amazing piece of red meat that I ever put in my mouth. It was really good, really good. And so I would highly recommend staying around and like I said, doesn't matter when you leave because the sun's up all the time. There's no such thing as night hiking there. So that's me. That's me sleeping. I just had the thing open and Dionis just snapped a picture. That's like my down jacket and my sunglasses over it because it was really. I mean, it was like the first. And this is my tent right here, and I mean, it's just like it doesn't even. When the sun's shining like that, it doesn't even provide privacy, let alone keep out any light. You can see right through it. That's what you get if you spend $600 on a tent that only weighs a pound. And so and this is just some of the scenery and a lot of the thing is just hiking, like you're just basically hiking through these valleys like this, and you could totally see where you're going, right? There's no, you can't get lost, and they have all these blazes. You familiar with that term? But they were very different because they had these blazes that were for hiking, and then they had these blazes that were probably 20 or 30 feet in the air that was for like the snowmobiles in the wintertime. That would follow a similar trail. But impossible to, I've always used like what they used to call gut hook, or now is called far out, or Gaia or whatever. And I did have this whole trail downloaded on Gaia, but it wasn't like on the Colorado Trail or Pacific Crest Trail or any of these other trails I've hiked. I was rarely ever looking at my phone, the whole time because it was just very easy to navigate. And so, can I make this play? Is it possible? So anyway, I made up this little song. Sleeping with your sunglasses on, of course. And then I got into this thing and these couple little young musicians, and I just showed them the melody on that ukulele, and then like I'm holding the words on my phone right there, and they're singing it. Go ahead. Yeah, no sound. Sleeping with my sunglasses on, I'll be singing the song all summer long. Sleeping with my sunglasses on, going to a disco about 4:45. Sun was sitting heavy in the middle of the sky. Had no idea it would shine all night long. Sleeping with my sunglasses on, I'll be sleeping with my sunglasses on. I've been sleeping with my sunglasses on. I've been singing this song all summer long. Sleeping with my sunglasses on. Ready to sleep, he was drinking a beer. Said, hey, where's the sun go down around here? Not till September, he made it clear. I'll be sleeping with my sunglasses on. Sleeping with my sunglasses on. Sleeping with my sunglasses on. I was singing this song all summer long. I was sleeping with my sunglasses on. The moral of the story is that what went wrong? Summer to the north, the sun shines all night long. Evening summer wind, So anyway, all of these trails that I've hiked, you go out there for solitude or whatever, but really, really what is the best thing about it is the social aspect of it, and you're always going to run into people. And in this particular case with this, it was then we we stopped off somewhere and they kept hiking, and so they were a little bit ahead of us, and so every time that I would run into somebody, further down the trail as we were passing people up because we hiked pretty fast, we would they would say, "Oh, you're American?" And I would say, "Yeah," and they'd be like, "Sleeping with your sunglasses on?" And they would start singing it back to me, and so at some point in time, and then every time it's it's an earworm type of a song, right? And so it really gets stuck in your head to an annoying extent. So every time they would do it, then I'd just be like, "Sleeping with your sunglasses on," all down the trail. And then at some point in time, I told Dionys, I said, "Man, I'm really starting to be sorry. I made that song up and then shared it with those girls because it's driving me crazy." He said, "Yes, me too." So this is one of these side trips, and every like you know um, website or anything I've seen about Kungsleden, this is like the main picture of it, and this is just this delta, and it's hard to see from the picture, but you're really 4 feet in front of us. You're looking down a 1,600-foot cliff into this, and it's very beautiful up there, and people hang out up there for hours, and so it's a side trip, and it's probably like the steepest type of elevation gain that we did the whole trip, and it's probably about I don't know, 6 miles, so 12-mile round trip. But if anybody's familiar with the Pacific Crest Trail, everybody goes up to Mount Whitney. I did, which is the highest point in the lower 48. But it's really not part of the trail. It's part of the John Muir Trail. But it's only like 8 miles up there. So you get to this certain point and everybody just camps and then makes a run up there to be up there. And this is a similar situation. But it is a really beautiful, the picture doesn't really do it justice. It's really beautiful. That's super green. And so the first place that I really resupplied was this, however you say that, Jeklovic or whatever. And it was really funny because when we were coming up on that, it was always 2 kilometers to this place, and then it was you'd walk 2 kilometers, and then you see another sign say 2 kilometers, 2 kilometers, 2 kilometers. I don't know what that was about, but and this is just some wildlife, So there was reindeer that we, and actually these reindeer are being herded by these Sami, the indigenous people of there, and but this was they called them moose, but they looked more like what we would call elk. Um, and this was the first place that I actually stayed in a real hotel. That was my main beef about this. We stay in these STF places, and sometimes they're more like a dormitory situation, and they don't have, which I didn't understand. Why would you not have shades on the windows? But they didn't. So this was the first place that it was a really a hotel, like I would consider a hotel, and I like to hike, but I also like to get to town, and I like my time in the hotel, and it's usually hard to drag me out of town once I get there. So we stayed here a couple nights. And this is just the inside of one of these the huts. There's the STF lodges. That they're more kind of like big buildings, like hotels. Some like I said, some of them are dormitory situations. Some of them are rooms, but no curtains and no real infrastructure. But this is just these huts that's out in the middle of nowhere that you run into over and over, and that has the little stores. And yeah, it was nice because they had these little Carlsberg beers that was like only like 3% or something like that. But normally I probably wouldn't like those beers, but they were really good after hiking all day. And it was, for a while, it was like every day we'd have a couple beers. This guy, his name is Jimmy. He's Swedish, and we kind of started hiking with him. And he lived in Stockholm, and we started hiking with him about halfway through the trip. And it's just one of the places that we camped. And anyway, that was really handy because he spoke the language, and then also he gave us a really good tour of Stockholm when we got back to Stockholm. And this is like, way back in the day of the, a structure that the Sami people lived in. There was just several of these along the trail. And this is the two kind of ways that you did the water crossings. There was some, larger bodies of water or whatever. And this guy's kind of trail famous, like everybody knows about him because he gives you a whole, knows everything about the ecology of the place and all that stuff. So he gives you a big lecture as you go, like a learning experience. And then this is Jimmy rowing the boat. So how it worked is that they just have these boats there, and there's 3 boats. And so there's always got to be 2 of them on one side. So if you get to the thing and there's only one boat, you got to go to the other side and then drag. I mean, there's 2 on one side, and there's always got to be 1 on each side. So you got to go across and then, drag the boat back and leave it and then go back across. So the couple times that we ran into that situation, I was like, I think I'll just eat lunch and see if a boat turns up. and it always did, so we got lucky on that. And so, yeah, a lot of it's just undrained wetlands. And so these STF like they're the trail keepers or whatever, and they just put these boards up for miles. Sometimes you're walking on these boards for miles and miles and miles. It's pretty cool. But I will also say, if you ever do hike the trail, don't ever get too close behind the person in front of you. You got to give them the whole board's length to go in front, because sometimes the back of it is not, pinned down, and then they go to step on the front of it and the back of it pops up. So yeah, I mean, you could get really hurt. And there's those what are those little limericks under, they're always squealing underneath all these things. And somebody told me that they will also chew a hole through your tent to get to your food and stuff like that, but we never had that problem. And this is the end of the trail. This is all of us all bearded up at the end of the trail. And then, from then in Hemavan, it's a ski resort town. You can see the gondola lift. As a matter of fact, it was just chucking down rain. I mean, you could see rain gear, umbrella and everything. It was just chucking down rain, and it was really steep, rocky stuff coming down and very slick. And we were trying to hurry because it was also cold. And then we got down to this, almost to the bottom, and this tram, whatever you call it, was running. And so we got on that and went the rest of the way down, and then it's then it's got like all the kind of things that you would expect at a ski resort town, nice hotels or whatever. So we stayed in a hotel there a couple nights and rearranged our flight, and then flew back to Stockholm. It was July. Yeah.
Do you have to make reservations?
No.
Okay.
Didn't
If
even.
you stay in the hut, you might have to make reservations, or
I don't think so. Like I never stayed in it because because like it's a kind of a communal type of situation, and I snore, and so I just didn't want to stay in there. But Diona stayed in it one night. But every time that we got to some place, there seemed to be like plenty of space. There's not that many people on the trail, and these things are pretty frequent.
you're talking, you camped in a tent, so if you didn't bring a tent, would you have to make reservations?
I couldn't answer it honestly because like obviously it wasn't the situation that I was in, but I never saw a place that looked full. And then this is us back in Zurich because then we flew from Stockholm back to Zurich, and that's Dionys's partner, and that's it. Any questions? Hey, I'm sorry. No, not at all. And it literally was the first couple nights before I sorted out, how I was going to cover my eyes. It was like I would just turn my back to the sun, and then go to sleep, and then a couple hours the sun would be in my face, so I'd have to roll over. But yeah, it really didn't change much. And I ran into this kid, and he was telling me he was just hiking in the what would be night hours. He was starting at like midnight and hiking till 9 in the morning or whatever. And I was like, well, it doesn't really make any difference. I mean, like, and he's like, I just wanted to be more solitary or whatever. So, I mean, there's always that option too. I'm sorry? Maybe 40s at night, I would guess. And I mean, 40s at the lowest, and maybe 70, 75. Pretty. Going through those valleys, it's pretty exposed, and then the tree line there also. Since so far north, the tree line is really crazy low, like 1,700 feet or something like that. So it is a lot of exposed stuff, and he was like, hey, I think we should bring umbrellas because I think it might rain a lot. It only rained a couple times, and usually we were already in the tent when it started raining. And it was just that last day that we really got drenched. But I used my umbrella all the time for just sun protection. Yeah. And then also sometimes I would prop it up in my tent so the sun wouldn't be in my face. Go ahead.
How were the bugs?
The bugs? Yeah, not bad at all. Not bad. We sort of learned like that there was so much exposed area where you could camp, and so we sort of learned that we didn't want to camp by the trees because the bugs were a little bit worse there. But yeah, no, not bad at all. Not like not like I've experienced like all the time of year since I'm a teacher. The time of year that I usually do these long trails, it's really that snow melt mosquito season, and they just swarming. Nothing like that.
Did you really go through very many towns, or is it mostly all?
No, not. I mean, really, there was that Jeklavik, and then that place where I said that there was a hotel. And when I got to the hotel, I didn't leave. They went to go get food at a grocery store or something. I was like, nah, I'm staying here, because I had plenty of food to get to the next place that we were going. Go ahead.
Do you know anything about
I don't. I mean, I would imagine that those shoulder seasons are still a lot of snow, and I guess it probably depends, what you mean by the spring. I would think it's probably already snowing in October there. I don't really know though. I mean, you could certainly Google it, and I'm sure you could get a better answer. But yeah, I think it's pretty much a summertime thing. There was when we were up at that thing where we were overlooking the delta. There was a guy up there, and he's um, a Sami person, and he was talking about going in the wintertime. He'd go and get grouse, and he was showing us like right down there. And he'd be on a snowmobile, and had like two, to sell these things, right? And he had like 240 grouses in the wintertime, and his snowmobile sunk down into that. He hit a soft spot, and it sunk down into that water and got bogged down. Had all these grouse, and then it was really this harrowing story of like almost died. Had to walk out. With, snow to here, and get to some place that he knew about. Like we wouldn't have survived. I mean, he knew what he's doing, but like I wouldn't have survived that trip. Go ahead.
Is there a tradition of having trail names, trail nicknames?
No, they didn't. I mean, like Dionys, his trail name is Maybe, because when he first got on the Pacific Crest Trail, everybody's like, "Are you a thru hiker? Are you a thru hiker?" Which is a big thing, right? And you're not really a thru hiker till you get to Canada, right? So, but to distinguish, are you just doing a section, or are you doing the whole thing? They say, "Are you a thru hiker?" So he would say, "Maybe, maybe." And so that got to be his trail name, and my trail name, because I ended up with him and a German guy and a woman from Taiwan. That was her trail name was No English, which was pretty accurate, and my trail name ended up being Local, because uh, I was the only American in a bunch of 5 people, right? There was 5 of us, 2 Germans, Swiss guy, the woman from Taiwan, and myself. And so one day it was like he was like, of course the German guy took care of the logistics, and the Swiss guy took care of the money. Who spent, well, had a little tabulation thing, who spent what on what, and we'd settle up at some point in time. And then he says, he does the logistics, I do the money. What do you do? I said, I haggle with the locals.
So your new trail name now is Sunglasses On.
Yeah, yeah. I guess if I would have got a trail name there, it definitely would have been Sleeping with Your Sunglasses On, or something like that. Yeah. Anything else?
You might have covered this, but how did you decide to do that trail versus one in one of the other Scandinavian countries?
Well, I mean, because it was like because it was this really long stretch of like really undeveloped, the wild, like they say, it's the wildest place. Jonas and I actually in 2020, he and I were going to do, I mean, had tickets and everything. We were going to do the High Pyrenees Trail, which is, between Spain and France, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And, pretty challenging actually. And, but, COVID happened. So I ended up on the Colorado Trail, and he said he just hiked out of his back door in Switzerland, and he's with no plan, and he just took his backpack and just started hiking, and the next day he would just look at the maps or whatever and say, okay, I think I'll go here now. And then he says, but I have cake every day. It took us about 2 weeks and 2 days, and at that point we were dragging our feet. But also, like most people, I mean, when like the Swedish people, I don't know, they had like what I would call really old school backpacking gear, like almost like what I would have with big cook sets and all of this, and but Dionis and I, we were like 20 plus, used to doing that type of hiking, and so he just looked at it and they said 3 weeks, and he went with that, and we really had to slow down to make it not more like 10 or 11 days. But
Did you camp anywhere, or did you have?
yeah, anywhere. And like there was no permits, or it was very easy. I mean, other than with getting there. And it really, if we were just flown to Stockholm, took the overnight train, because we had a whole thing with the trains too, like I said, because we got to Copenhagen and the train to Stockholm was just canceled, and then we missed the night train, and we had to, we went down, talked to the conductor on the next train that was going out. He's like, "Oh, this is full all summer long. You'll never get there," and blah blah blah. And then I just went back and talked to the lady that was actually back by the cabin things, and she says, "Oh, well, I guess I have to let you on." And so, but we had the little berth or whatever to ourselves. It was like a 4-person berth, but nobody else ever came in there. But yeah, go ahead. Oh, tons, and Jonas is a PhD in geology, so he would every trail I've been on with him, he's a wealth of information. Now, who's the guy in the Sierra Club that he's like that, to where like you if you go on a hike with him. Oh well, Philip, yes, Philip obviously, but the more like the plant life thing, he knows everything what's edible, and yeah. If you go on a, what's that?
Oh, Andrew.
Andrew, yes, yeah. It's like going with him, He'll stop and pick up some scat with his hands and do like that, and figure out what animal it came from, and yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to ask, because, for someone who hasn't maybe done a long through hike, or I think it's not through hike, a long hike like that, does this feel like something that like a newer hiker could do? Or is
Yes, I think that this is the most accessible hike that I've been on. Like I feel like probably when I'm you know older, in my 80s or something like that, I think I would like to go do it again. Yeah, yeah. So it's very accessible. Go ahead.
Is the wildlife not at all something to fear, except for maybe the moose? Is there any wildlife that one would have to be afraid of?
No, I mean I wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, I don't. There wasn't. It wasn't moose like the moose here. It was more like elk, and yeah. And I don't know. There might. I'm sure that there's bears there or whatever. We didn't see any. I mean, I never really even asked the question, but I mean, I guess I'm from. I mean, I'm from New Mexico, so like mountain lions and black bears. Like I know them and I know how they act, and I've never been afraid of that. One of the reasons why I don't hike the Continental Divide Trail is because I don't know a damn thing about grizzly bears or wolves, and they seem scarier to me. But I mean, I don't think that, like, if you really look at it, like, wildlife are not dangerous on any of these trails. I mean, that's not how people die. They die, crossing, fording a creek, or they get struck by lightning, and on the Pacific Crest Trail, more people die every year from hitchhiking to town than they do from anything else that happens on the trail. So yeah, I don't think wildlife is. I mean, obviously, you don't want to approach them or feed them or anything like that, but I don't really think that wildlife is very dangerous anywhere.
There's still bears there,
What's that?
for a fact.
No, I don't. I would assume that there's bears there, but I have no idea. What's that?
You didn't hear about any bears.
No. But like on the other trails, I have a lot. Like I've seen, Colorado Trail, Pacific Crest Trail. I've seen bears, and then I've had, like on the Colorado Trail, like 3 different times I had to give food to people because the bear got all their food out the tree. Don't hang your food in the western tree is bad strategy. bad food protection strategy.
Nice to know if there are bears or wolves or both.
Yeah, yeah, maybe. Yeah, yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. Niles hates when I say this. I sleep with it, and I've never lost my food. And everybody I've ever known that sleeps with their food, they've never lost their food. So everybody will say this. This is my theory, and I would like to actually do a study if somebody knows. If somebody knows about 3,000 people that have spent over 100 nights in the wilderness or more, and how they protected their food, I'd like to do a study, because anything that anybody tells you about it is just going to be, conventional wisdom or their personal experience or something like that. But most of the bears that I've actually seen on the trail, I've seen them when I was walking on the trail in the daytime. My food's in my backpack. If they got this sense of smell and they're willing to go through a human being, come get it. I mean, because I'm going to leave it. Like, I'm here. Here you go. If they come and they look like they want some food, I'm giving up the food. Right? I've never heard of that happening ever. Ever. Never heard of it happening. So if they're not willing to come through a human being to get the food in the daytime, why would they do it at night? And a lot of people, everybody that loses their food, here's how you protect your food. If people are people really interested in this? Here's how you protect your food. You don't sleep by the water. You don't cook in your camp. So you triangulate, right? So I will stop at where I want to get my water for the night and for the next day to get me to the next water source. And I'll stop there and I'll cook my food there, because you're going to use water for the food and no sense carrying that, right? And then I cook my food there, and then I eat, and then I'll walk a mile and a half away from the water, and I'll camp where nobody else is camping, unless I'm with a lot of people and that's where they want to camp. I'll camp by a lake or whatever, just for the social experience. But if I took my two grandsons, who was 11 and 12 at the time, on the Tahoe Rim Trail, a 170-mile trail in the wilderness in Tahoe, and they have a huge bear problem there. My youngest grandson was like, I want to see a bear, I want to see a bear, I want to see a bear. I was like, we're staying away from bears, and because like, I don't, you're not even my kids. Like, I'm not being responsible for that. I'm not being responsible for that, and I don't want to sleep in a tent with you. So you guys are sleeping in your tent over there, and we at that time I used a rucksack, which I never have used before or since. But a rucksack is just this woven thing that they're going to destroy your food, but they just can't get it. But I took it and I would tie it down the trail about 100 yards, and I tie it to the tree, and then we come back and I'd pick it up on my way out. That's probably a pretty good way to protect it, at least protect the bear, right? Your food's still going to get mangled and have saliva all in it and everything like that, because it's just woven Kevlar. But you could do that. But I was like, don't worry about it. We'll see a bear in town. We saw a bear in town. Tons of bears in South Lake Tahoe. You can't go to South Lake Tahoe without seeing a bear. But but no, I really, don't sleep by the water. Like the last time I was on the Pacific Crest Trail in Washington, every day they would say, did that bear keep you up in your camp last night? And I was like, no, I didn't hear bear. And they were like, where'd you sleep? And I was like, just up on that ridge right there. Oh, we slept at the lake. Okay, guess what? They fish at night. I mean, and if and thing about it is like, I like to see bears, but not when I'm sleeping. And the only time I've ever had bears in my campground, when I was sleeping, I was on the Pacific Crest Trail, and there's this place, Lawson Volcanic National Park. you could hike to this place that's like a campground. They have a restaurant. You can get some beers, and so take a shower, that kind of thing. It had an outdoor shower, and so it's like, yeah, we're gonna hike there and stay there, but we were staying like in a paid campground where people drove to and stuff like that. All night long, 5 bears in the camp. It was just all you heard was clanking pans and stuff. Bear, 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 Yeah. The guy next to me was like, "You see, there's bears in here." Yeah, I'm trying to sleep though. They got plenty. Because there you had to carry a bear canister, which only for this 27-mile stretch, which that's logistically impossible. And so it was easier just to go to that campground where they had these bear boxes and store your food there and sleep there. But that's the only time that I know of that there's ever been a bear in my campground at night. And I at least I got to have more than 200, 300 nights in the wilderness. Anything else?
What does reindeer taste like?
So the most like a similar to like the best cut of beef, like if you could just have a filet mignon that was like that big and that that deep, it was similar to that, really good. And then they asked you how you wanted to cook, and I was like, yeah, however the chef, and it was pretty rare, and it was very good. Everybody's not red meat eaters, but if you are, reindeer. And every time after that, it was like I had all these other reindeer dishes, but it was like some pasta with some kind of ground reindeer. But this was like a fillet, and it was fantastic.
So you call it reindeer steak, or what do you order? Did you want to get that?
It just said reindeer on the menu. It just said reindeer on the menu, and then these other places.
I didn't want the spaghetti dish.
Yeah.
Filet.
Yeah, I mean, but obviously those things they described it.
Is that the loin? Did you get the best cut that was described? I think it was
It's probably like the backstrap, right? Like a deer. Deer has the backstrap, and even mule deer or these white-tailed deer, that backstrap is pretty good. But this was like, because I think that they're being herded and they're probably more sedentary than deer. So yeah, it was good. Grass fed. Is that it? You bet.